now it is time. I need you to all sit up in your seats. Sit up in your seats. I'm like a choir conductor. Ha, ha, ha. Sit up in your seats. I need you to take your phone and put it away. Put it away tonight, all right? Put it away for me. If you can give me the next 25 minutes of your attention, I promise I will give you the best that I have, okay? So I ask, this is a respect thing, right? I give you the best that I have, you give me the best that you have for the next 25 minutes. If a leader sees you with a phone out, they're gonna ask you to put it away. So please be aware of that. And I just ask that everybody pays attention here. If you wanna take a note here and there, that's fine. But I ask that you do pay attention to what we're gonna talk about tonight, because we're gonna continue our series on mind games. We talked the last several weeks about mind games, and we talked about how all this stuff goes on your mind all the time. How many of you have problems with your mind? Your mind just goes crazy sometimes. All right, yeah, we're here. We have these things that happen in our mind where these mind games can happen. It can almost be like mind battles as well, where these thoughts, they battle back and forth. And we talked about how it stems from the spirit and the heart and the emotions. And we talked about a few weeks ago that when we're filling our mind with good things will overflow from it. And we were talking about that. And we were talking about how we need to put things where they belong into our life. And I was thinking about this, and this is going to sound really weird. And it made me think about how sometimes we have things that are in our life that don't belong in our life. And I was watching a documentary on one of those weird medical show things. And it was actually about little kids that stuck weird stuff up their noses. All right, check this out. Check this out. Like little dude stuck an army man up his nose. Up his nose. They took him to the doctor and they had to pull the army man out. Some little kids tried to stick a matchbox up his nose, like a car, like a little toy car up his nose. All right, let's be honest. How many of you stuck Cheerios up your nose? Yeah, I figured. Let's be real honest. Can we be really honest here? How many of you have ever stuck grapes in your nose and tried to shoot them? Shoot the, see, I know who I'm working with here. Shooting grapes out of your nose, you weirdos. What are you doing all that, shooting them? All right, this one little kid, he had a cheese ball that he shoved up his nose, and he had it up there for so long that it turned different colors up his nose. It was crazy. So, listen. And then someone already mentioned this, but the worst story that I found was a little girl who was shoving crayons up her nose. And these crayons that will be which actually I found is kind of like a common thing. As a youth pastor, you investigate and you research really weird stuff. And so I literally Googled weird things up kids' nose, and crayons was actually the number one weird thing that. But I started thinking about crayons. And I started thinking about how crayons work and all these things. And can you think back when you were a little kid, how many of you how many still love playing with crayons? You love the crayons. See, when I remember at one point, when you went to school, you would have the huge 48 colors, 50 colors Crayola box that they would get. And they had crazy names for these colors. You would call, mac and cheese and tumbleweed and all these things. And you're like, what is going on right now? But I was thinking about this. You enjoyed coloring. I enjoyed coloring. As kids, it's so much fun. We enjoy doing these things. And coloring, we can spend hours doodling and making things and drawing things and adding color to them. And now they actually have adult coloring books. They have adult coloring books where as an adult, it's a little bit more complicated, but you're still coloring because coloring is very therapeutic and you're able to do it. And it's pretty great because it can teach you, some things about your attitude, which I'm finding out. I didn't even know this. When you're coloring, when you color with crayons, you can select the color you want to use and you begin with that color. And then that's a lot like how your attitude works. Check this out. This is crazy. There's a whole psychology about this that I read up on, which is interesting. But it's very interesting. The colors that you choose to use to color in a coloring paper as a kid oftentimes determines what your attitude is like of that day. And it was very interesting to read about this. But then it made me think about something even more. See, you can choose your color that you want to use to color in a coloring book. And you can choose whatever you want when you're just I'm going to sit down and color at this age. You get to choose what you want to write, what you want to draw. So you just take a color out and you do it. Why? Because you want to. So you can choose the color that you want, but as you get older, you can also begin to choose the attitude that you want. The attitude that you have to respond to different situations. And so tonight we're going to be continuing the series of mind games, and we're going to be talking about attitudes and when it comes to your attitude. There's this little place that is called the Stanford Research Institute. A lot of smart people work here. And what they found out is because a lot of us, we want to be successful. I don't know about you, but I want to be successful in what I do. I hope you want to be successful. But what they actually found out is that 12.5% of our success in life is determined on what we know. All right? So everything that you're learning right now in school, everything that you know in knowledge, wisdom, whatever you learn, only 12% of that is really based on this, like your success will be based on only 12% of that. The other 87.5% purely comes by your attitude. I want you to think about that for a second. Your attitude, 85% of your success that you may have in life is all dictated by your attitude and how your attitude works and what your attitude is about. And I thought that was pretty crazy. There's this guy who is named Chuck Swindoll. He's called one of the best-selling authors. He had this really cool quote, and I'm going to put it on the screen for you because I want you to check this out. He says this, check this, and then we're gonna go into some fun stuff here. He said, I believe that the single most significant decision I can make on a day-to-day basis is my choice of attitude. See, the attitude I choose keeps me going or cripples my progress. When my attitudes are right, there's no barrier too high, no valley too deep, no dream too extreme. Why? Because when your attitude is right, your mindset is right. So we're talking about mind games, the battles that go on the mind. So what we're going to find out tonight is that you can actually, through the Bible, which is the foundation of what we do, everything. Through the Bible, you can actually learn that your attitude is actually so important to your spiritual life. It's actually very important to your spiritual life on how you respond and how you act and how you are. And, and typically, when we talk about attitudes, we think of the way someone acts or talks, right? Like, we really think about that. How many of you ever met someone that has a bad attitude? I want you, how many of you ever met someone that's got, a bad attitude? Okay. All right, some people got their hands raised. Okay. So those of you that didn't raise your hand, you're probably the reason your neighbor, raised your hand. Because I saw someone look at their friend and they're like, yeah, you totally have a bad attitude. I'm raising my hand because of you right here. So we a bad attitude, we're raising our hand from that. How many of you, if I sat down with you and I would say, hey, tell me a time or give me an example of a time when you had a bad attitude, how many of you could think of one in 3 seconds? Yep, had a bad attitude. Totally. I've been there. We all have had these bad attitudes before. And there are so many times when we talk about attitude, we talk about the way people react to something or the way that people are with things. And the symptoms to, the attitude are these. Let me see if you guys are familiar with any of these. I'm actually pretty sure I've witnessed these firsthand by a lot of you. So the very first classic of the attitude is the eye roll. Everybody give me a good eye roll right now. Let me see a good eye roll. Yeah, the eye roll. Yep, very good. The eye, total eye roll. Okay, the eye roll can totally be followed up by a sarcastic comment. Oh man, I'm all about that, right? I might not roll my eyes, but you're going to get a sarcastic comment out of me. That's just going to happen. So you have the classic eye roll. Then you have the sarcastic comment that comes. And then there's the very strong and hard, eh. Everybody give me a eh. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so you totally know what I'm talking about, right? The eye roll totally followed, you have this eye roll by the sarcastic comment. And then when you're asked to do something, it's the total And then that can go where you do the shoulder shrug like that. Some of us, not all of us do that. It's the shoulder shrug. Or some people do the hair flip or the whatever. People still do the whatever, which is crazy to me. They're you're asking me to do something, I'm not doing that, whatever. Or I'm not going to do it. But the most common line, check this out. The most common line that we hear, from people that, when you, are directing something to them and they have an attitude and they're ew, no. Ew, no. Ew, no. Really? That's the best that you got? You're so bad. You got an attitude and the best you can come up with is ew. Really? Really? I mean, come on right now. We're talking about bad attitudes and that's all you got is ew. But my favorite, let me just be totally honest with you. My favorite bad attitude gesture. Like my absolute favorite that just like, it makes me laugh when like kids do it or when people do it to me. My absolute favorite attitude moment is totally 100% the body language part. Like the body language part. Like you'll be up to be like, I'm not in a bad mood. And you're like, that's not what your head just said because you're all bobbling everywhere. Like your head's gonna fall off your shoulder. Like, I'm not in a bad, or like the little like stomp. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you get mad and you're like, I'm not doing what, I'm not cleaning my room, not doing. I'll be like, yo, check this out. It's a quick story. This is crazy. This is funny. So when I was little, I'm gonna tell you. Remember, I talk about my mom, my gangster mom, right? My mom's a total gangster. So when I was little, I got mad at my mom once. And I stomped. We had wooden steps that made a ton of noise. I was like, I am not doing that. And my mom's like yelled at me, told me to get down. So she takes me downstairs to the basement, right? She takes me down the basement. She goes, take your shoes off. I'm like, what are you talking about, taking my shoes off? And of course, I'm like, fine, I'm gonna take my shoes off. I'm gonna show you. So we had a cement floor that was really cold. My mom was like, you wanna stomp? Start stomping. So there I stomped on cold cement floor. And I was just like, and of course I'm doing it with an attitude at first. I'm like, I got you, Mom. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Then about 2 minutes later, I'm like, Mom, it really hurts. Like, I gotta stop it. Mom's like, get an attitude with me again. I'm like, Mom, my feet are gonna fall off. But that's how my mom rolled. She was like gangster like that. Like, she didn't play games. She made you, it's totally a sidebar. Anyway, but body language is like this. Body language, we have this body language that says, I'm not gonna say it with my words, but I'm gonna say it with my actions. Some people like, they have these things where you ask them, that's stupid, I'm not playing that. Yeah, I never heard that one before. Or, this is boring, do we have to do that? Yep, we've heard that. Yo, I literally, this happened at camp. Someone said, whatever, old dude. Listen, this old dude, I will, you want to, yeah, I will pray for you. Or you got that attitude like when someone is telling you something like, I don't care what you say. That drives me in. Or how about this one? I do what I want to do. Oh, you know what? Well, I want to go throw you in the street right now is what I want to do. What do you want to do? But check this out. So I want to give you the dictionary definition of attitude because that's what we're talking about tonight. Because all of us know people or ourselves that have this attitude. So this is what an attitude is. It's a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something. It's typically reflected with your behavior and how you act and how you are. So this means this. Check this out. This is really neat. So this means that once it's settled in your mind, it's not gonna be changed. And you're gonna have that when you're choosing to have that bad attitude, it's gonna go from in this battlefield of the mind that we're talking about, you're gonna choose to have it up here, and it's gonna stem into your heart, which is then gonna stem out of your heart and into your actions. Because if you remember a couple weeks ago, we talked about guard your heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, your mouth speaks. So in your mind, you choose, I'm gonna have a bad attitude. You begin to get that and your heart matches up with what your mind is. Then your actions begin to do the very thing that you were thinking about doing. And so therefore, this attitude comes out of you that shouldn't be. And it's crazy because I've read this passage of scripture so many times, but I never caught this part of the verse. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 20. Check this out on the screen behind me. Paul says, that, however, is not the way of life that you learned when you heard about Christ and were taught to him in accordance with the truth that is Jesus. You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off the old self, which is being corrupted by deceitful desires. Verse 23, but to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and true holiness. So I think I underlined that part in verse 23. It says, to be made new in the attitude of your minds. This attitude is referring to the way that you're living, the way that you're portraying who you're being and who you are. Paul said to put off the old and to put on the new, and that new thing is supposed to be Jesus. It's supposed to be the very thing that reflects everything about Jesus that we want to be a part of. Because listen to me, guys, listen to me. When you call yourselves Christians, you're not just saying like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. You're actually telling people that you are taking on who Jesus is and you're living like him. Okay? And what is it called when you live, you say you live a certain way, but you don't? That's what? Fake. We don't like that. So if we call ourselves a Christian and we're saying, listen, I am like Christ, I'm a little Jesus Christ, I'm going to put that on me, then you better make sure that your attitude matches that of Jesus Christ. That we put on the attitude of Jesus. My dad used to tell me when I got out of line that he said, you know what, you need an attitude adjustment. How many of you have ever heard that? Like you need to adjust your attitude. I knew, and this is the thing, is when I had the attitude, you know, it's like when we have this attitude, when we're mad about something, we know that we have the attitude and we know that it's going to get us in trouble, but we just don't care. I want you to think about it. It really doesn't make any sense. Because like, I know I'm going to get in trouble if I stay in this mindset of wanting what I want and how I want it. And if I continue in this mindset and this game, I keep playing with this game with my attitude, I'm going to get in trouble by whatever it is, whether it's my parents at school, my grandma, whoever it is I'm at. If I continue in this attitude, I know that I'm going to get in trouble. So why do I continue to be in this attitude? Why? Well, it's because we want what we want. And we're not going to believe anything else. So tonight, I want to challenge you in that mindset of saying, no, what I want is better than being like Jesus. Because that's what we say. We say that what we want is better than being like Jesus. And so we're going to talk about some different types of attitudes that we have sometimes that I've just kind of picked up over the last couple of years working with students. And I found that there are attitudes that you can have. And I'm going to give you the attitude, and I'm going to give you the biblical response to that attitude. So let's talk about the first attitude. You little whiny. You little whiny. So Timber, our dog, he'll whine all the time because he wants peanut butter. All the time. He's spoiled. He's like literally, Bethany and I, we'll be sitting watching TV and he'll come up and he'll look at you. He'll look at you and go, oof. And you just ignore him. And then he'll get a little louder, oof. And you ignore him. But then he gets like closer to you. Then he goes, oof. You just ignore him. Then he gets closer to you, closer. This dude will be right here. And he'll be breathing his hot air on you. And he'll be like, ugh. And you're like, bro, if you don't get out of my face right now. And then you go get him his peanut butter. Why? Because we call him whiny hiney. Because he'll whine all about wanting this peanut butter. And I was thinking about this. This is the attitude, check this out. This is the attitude of the person that will complain about everything you do, no matter how great the situation. No matter how wonderful or great the situation is, you could be in Disney World, okay? Disney World, it could be beautiful out. Everything could be paid for. You don't have to pay for anything. It could be absolutely perfect. Disney World, everything's paid for, and all of a sudden, you're going to whine about it. Well, it's too hot. It's too cold. My feet hurt. That's my whiny voice. But so we'll get this whiny mentality that we have about things, and our attitude will be wrong because the situation can be absolutely amazing, but yet we're still going to find something to whine about. And people would people start whining like, do you want some cheese with that wine? You know, like someone once said this, like someone was whining, like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand whinies. You know, like, why are you going to whine like that? Like, quit whining, don't be a whiner. And this is what I found in 1 Thessalonians 5:18. In everything, check this. In everything, give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Pause right here. Check this verse out. If you were to understand this verse and you live this the rest of your life, you would be the most close portrayal of Jesus that anyone has ever seen. Because it says, in everything, give thanks. Why? Because this is God's will for you. So God's will for you is not to be a little whiny-hiney. His will for you is not to whine and complain about everything. His will for you is to give thanks in everything. Why? Because this is how Christ Jesus was. Being thankful. His attitude not being one to complain or whine about all these things. There will be times in our lives when we're tempted to say, you know what? If it feels good, do it. If it doesn't, don't. There will be times to say, listen, things are great, but they could be even better. So why don't you just complain that things aren't the right way? Sometimes we have a bad attitude, and it's purely because all we do is whine and complain about everything that's going on. This is that one person that will find negativity in wine because nothing will ever be perfect for them. But the Bible says very clearly that you are not supposed to be like this. Your attitude should be that of Christ Jesus. So don't be a whiny. Second one is this, just having a negative attitude. Finding a negative attitude. This attitude is the person that will find negative about anything, anywhere, all the time. Doesn't matter how good life is, they're going to be negative about it. We call them fun suckers. They suck the fun out of everything. Like, you're having a great time, you're hanging out with your friends, you know who that person is. Some of you are laughing right now because you know who that person is. Like, you're hanging out, you're having a good time. They walk in the room, it's like, whoop, there goes the fun, right out the door. Why? Because they just showed up. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, you know who it is. You're having a great time. You're having fun. And that person rolls up. You're like, oh, now the fun is gone. Why? Because we have this attitude of this person that literally you can be having such a great time and all of a sudden they show up and all the fun goes away. But check this out. I want you to understand this about negative people because this will teach you something not just in your friends but in life. Negative people always tend to focus on other people's faults and not their own. Because oftentimes they're too ashamed to deal with what's going on in their life, so they'd rather point out the messed up stuff that's going on in your life. They'll point out your shortcomings. They'll make comments about you. They'll make statuses about you. Why? Because it's easier for us to talk about other people than to deal with the negativity of our own lives. I want you to catch that. It's easier for me to talk about how bad somebody is than it is for me to deal with my own issues. But what does the Bible say about this? Philippians 4:8. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable. If there's anything excellent, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these good things. Think about good things. Don't be negative. Find the best. If it's noble, if it's right, if it's just, if it's lovely. Guys, there is so much negativity that is going on in our generation. From the news to Facebook posts to Instagram, no matter where you look, you're going to find negativity. It's not going to take you long. That's why you turn on the news, it's all negative. It's all negative. That's why it's such a breath of fresh air when we hear good stories. Why are the most watched things on YouTube, the most watched things on Facebook? Why are they inspirational videos? Why are they good videos? Why? Because people want to see some good things happen. They want to see some positive things happen. But as a Christian, right off the bat, Paul is saying, listen, you really need to get it together. You need to think on the good things, the righteous things, the holy things. So whatever is pure, whatever is noble, whatever is just, whatever is lovely, think about these things. Why? Because your mind is going to reflect your heart's attitude and how you decide to act. Then let's talk about this one, which is kind of a hard one. Let's talk about the mean attitude. Straight up just being mean. This is the person that doesn't know how to function with their own life, so they take it out on other people's lives. The mean attitude. And if I could have everybody's attention, because I know this is what's happening in society. Years ago, they made even a movie about this situation, dealing with it. It was called Mean Girls. And it came out. And it's like being mean now is like normal behavior that you're going to find somewhere. Nobody likes a bully. Nobody likes people that are mean. But here's the deal. There are people out there that are just straight up mean. They have a mean attitude about things. They're not nice people. They're just mean, straight up. I went to school with people who were just mean. There was really no reason. And you would think that they were a happy person. You would think that they'd have some joy in their life. But no, they were just straight up mean. And if there's one attitude a Christian should not have, if there's one way you should not act as a Christian, you should not be mean. That is actually the complete opposite of how Jesus was. Complete opposite. Although we don't find the word bullying in the Bible, we find this word, brutish. It's a synonym for brutal thuggery associated with thieves, assassins, and savage beasts that lived in the wilderness. So check this out. The Greek and Hebrew word translated brute or brutish means stupid, foolish, or irrational. So we can derive this from bully, because that's where it comes from, that there's actually talked about beasts that were in the wild that would act very stupidly. Check that out. So it's acting out of a thuggery, acting out of being something that is not good. It's a brutish mentality. It's meaning that it's something like cattle or beasts, incapable of rational thought. But yet it's so unfortunate that we have to deal with this in schools because we have to deal with bullying happen in schools. We have to deal with bullying happen on social media. We have to deal with bullying happening in churches. We have to deal with bullying happen even at your workplace. See, my generation, when we grew up, social media wasn't this big thing yet. So like bullying happened at school, but then you went home and you didn't have to worry about it. You didn't have to worry about kids sending you messages on Facebook or Instagram or people posting pictures about you. You didn't have to deal with mean people because you could escape it. Your generation doesn't have that luxury anymore unless you just shut your phone off or shut your computer off or shut your iPad down. You don't have that luxury anymore to deal with that. You have to deal with it each and every day, the access that people have into your life to be mean to you. We see it all over the place. So how do we deal with people that have mean attitudes? Well, it's very simple. Luke chapter 6, verses 27, 28. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. And pray for those who abuse you. Man, that verse isn't easy, but it is biblical. Pray for those who hate us, and then ask God to bless them that are mean to us and have this attitude. We can't do that in our own strength. You can't do that by yourself. But through Jesus, you can do it. You can be able to do this. So we have these common things that happen with a bad attitude. But now I'm going to give you, real quickly, I'm going to give you 5 things, 5 ways, 5 attributes, because I found this on Christianity.com. It was really interesting. A bad attitude is in 5 ways that it plagues us. Number 1 is this. Having a bad attitude, it's unworthy of a Christian. We are people who are guaranteed a future with Jesus. We are people that are guaranteed to have life and to have it more abundantly. We are people that are guaranteed to have a hope, to have a future. So in that, having that hope, having that future, we should not even be connected to that situation of having this bad attitude. We shouldn't even be connected to having that mentality. Because what good is it to call yourself a Christian, a follower of Jesus, and then to have a bad attitude about life? There's this writer, and this is what he says. I thought this was pretty crazy. His name is Jeremiah Burroughs. He said this: the devil is the most discontented creature in the world. He is the proudest creature that there is, and the most discontented creature, and the most dejected creature. Now, therefore, so much discontent as you have, so much of the spirit of Satan is in you. So basically, it's saying when you deal with attitude things and attitude issues and all these attitude problems that happen in your life, you're acting just like Satan. That's tough. But see, having a bad attitude about life or about what's going on, about what you're facing, it says that you have the Spirit. You have the Spirit that's going on, the Spirit that's happening. And you don't want to have that. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be that. Why? Because it's unworthy of a Christian to have this type of attitude. Number 2 is this. When you have a bad attitude, you have other attributes that come along with that are not good. A bad attitude is always accompanied by a bunch of different things. Things like depression and anxiety. Things like fear. Things like getting into things that you shouldn't get into to try to cure the pain of having the bad attitude. So we have to understand that you have this mentality that goes on of it's unworthy, but then also you got to understand what's going to come along with this bad attitude. Because sin always welcomes other sins into your life. Wrongdoings always brings and says, hey, I'm going to bring my friends along with me. All of my friends of wrongdoing, all of my friends. That's why it's so difficult. That's why it's so hard. The longer our bad attitude goes unchecked, the more sins we're often going to commit because we don't have it in check. Third thing is this: a bad attitude, it stems from pride. A heart that says that we deserve to do it our way rather than God's way. That my way is better than God's way. That I approve of my action and I don't really care about God's action. That's a very dangerous way to live, especially as a Christian. Number 4, it drags out your troubles and your problems and what's going on in your life a lot longer when you have a bad attitude. There's going to be hard days. There's going to be messed up plans and difficult people. But the more you fight and have the bad attitude and fight against them and rail against them, the longer it seems like it's going to happen. Because a bad attitude will lead you to bad things. When you have a bad attitude about a situation you're facing in life, it's going to just prolong whatever is going on. That's like when you get in trouble with your mom or your dad or with whoever you're with. When you have a bad attitude, it just gets worse. The longer your attitude is, the worse the punishment gets. The longer your bad attitude is, the more you drag the situation out yourself. So you have to learn that you can't be dragging a situation of a bad attitude out yourself, because that's not the way that things should work. The fifth is this, and this is the dangerous part about a bad attitude. I want everybody to catch this before we close. The bad thing about a bad attitude is it spreads to others like an infection. Think about a time when you were hanging out with a group and they all started complaining, or they all started bad-mouthing someone, or they all started gossiping about someone, or they all started tearing someone else down. How long did it take for you to join with them? How long did it take for you to be just like them? Why? Because it's easy to join in when we're bashing people. That's because our attitudes are contagious. Catch that. Your attitude is contagious. That's why someone that has a positive attitude can walk into a room and lighten a whole room up. But that's why also someone that's whiny can walk into a room and everyone starts to complain. Someone that's negative can walk into a room and people begin negative. Someone that just talks bad about people can walk in a room and then everybody else is talking bad about people. The attitude that you have, young people, is contagious to the people that you're around. Your friends, your family, your coworkers. So you got to keep your attitude in check. Your attitude might need an adjustment. A bad attitude is like Christ's likeness in us and robs us. We're saying that we love Christ, but we're acting a whole different way. Bottom line is this. When you change your mindset, you change your attitude, which changes your life. When you change your mindset, you can change your attitude, and then it changes your life. Because maybe you had plans that didn't go your way, so you choose to have a bad attitude about it. And that bad attitude now is affecting and changing your life. Because you're not being positive, you're being negative. You're looking at the bad things and not the good things that could come out of whatever the situation is that you face. That's why you have to be very careful. As you continue this on, the idea is to get you to understand that Jesus is the one that we follow. Our attitude should be that of Jesus Christ. When you look and study Jesus, you're like, dude, this dude was wild. Jesus loved the unlovable. He hung out with people that no one else hung out with. He loved the discontented people. He loved the mean people. He loved the poor people. He loved the rich people. He loved all this variety of people. He loved people that everybody else absolutely hated. Jesus was very gentle. He was very kind. He was very good. But when he needed to be, he was very firm and he was very hard as well. But Jesus is the one that our attitude should be like. And that's hard. That's hard to adjust. But sometimes we need to adjust the attitude within ourselves to say, hey, you know what? My mind is starting to play these games on me and I need to change my attitude because my mind isn't right. But you know what all of us have? All of us have this. We all have one thing in common tonight. Every single one of us has this one thing. We all have one moment. Every one of us has one thing tonight. We all have the opportunity of one moment. And what do I mean by that, the opportunity of one moment? You have the opportunity in one moment to change your attitude. Things you'd rather not have in your mind and things you'd rather keep yourself. You have one moment to say, I'm not going to be like this. You have one moment to say, I'm going to change my attitude. You have one moment to say, I'm not going to whine. You have one moment to say, I'm not going to be negative. You have one moment to say, I'm not going to be mean. We all have the same moment to say yes or no. That I'm going to be given over to my bad attitude or that I'm not going to be given over to my bad attitude. How we deal with our moments reflect what is inside of us. How we respond to life talks about how we are as people. And if you respond out to life with bad attitudes all the time, then my challenge is, do you really know Jesus? Do you really authentically know what Jesus is about? It's hard to handle life when all these things are going around you, but we must keep our eyes on Jesus. If Jesus was able to do it, you can do it. We must let Jesus be the source of our attitude, our character, and our response. Because Jesus is ultimately the one that needs to give you and I the attitude adjustment that changes how we think, how we feel, and how we act about things. So do me a favor for the next moment, just bow your heads and close your eyes. Maybe tonight you're in here and you can say, I have a bad attitude. Maybe that's what you can say tonight. Listen, if we were to sit one-on-one, I'd say, how's your attitude? You would say, bad. You would say, I don't have a good outlook on life. I don't have a good response to situations in life. I don't react the way that I should. I definitely don't react like Jesus does. Well, tonight, he wants to give you an attitude adjustment. Tonight, Jesus wants to change things for you and through you and in you. Why? Because the mind games, they have to stop. Because they're winning. The bad attitude is winning. So tonight, if you're here and you can say, Pastor Micah, I have this problem where I have a bad attitude. If that's you tonight, I'm going to pray, and I want you to pray with me. Because I'm going to be honest, there are times where I have a bad attitude about things in life. There are times when I don't have the best outlook because I don't like the outcome, and so my attitude is bad. But tonight, if you have a bad attitude and you want to change that, I want to encourage you to pray with me tonight. And then we'll go on and get out of here. But let's do what we need to do first. God, we're here tonight. We thank you and we praise you for who you are and what you're doing. God, I thank you that there's so many students here tonight. And I thank you that so many of them connected tonight with what you have in store for us. But God, I pray that we get the attitude adjustment that we need tonight. That you will change the attitude that is deep within us, that sometimes we're whining about things, we're complaining. Sometimes we're negative. Sometimes we're mean. God, whatever it is tonight, that you will change our attitude because we want to be more like you and less like us. So God, I pray that you will help us to become men and women, young men and women, who are just the perfect betrayal of who you are, Jesus. That how we respond to situations, how we react to certain things, God, that you will help us to deal with the things that we should in the right way. That when our parents ask us something, we have the right attitude. When our teacher asks us something, we have the right attitude. When our youth leader, our youth pastor, or mentor, or counselor, or whoever it is, asks something of us, that we will have the right attitude and the right response. Because we want to be more like Jesus and less like us. So God, I pray tonight for each and every student, each and every leader, that you will give us an attitude adjustment tonight. God, I pray that you continue to mold us, continue to make us, continue to allow us to know you in a real way. And we thank you and praise you for these things. I pray that this message will change us. I pray that it challenges us, and I pray that it renews us. And God, as we leave tonight, that we will leave with the right attitude. And we thank you and praise you in all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.